It's Ryan. It's Shane. It's FlamesNation Radio, episode 60, delivered to you by DoorDash and also brought to you by Eau Claire Distillery, Rupert's Whiskey, the makers of Rupert's Whiskey, the official whiskey of the Calgary Flames. How are you, Shane?
I am still reeling from the greatest football game I've watched in 3 years. I don't know if you're watching, but I know Retro on Barn Burner there. He's a big Bills fan. So I decided to wear my jersey today to rub it in. Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL. And that's how we're on.
I did not watch the game because there's just too many things going on that day. And I was just laying on the couch being like, I'm just going to do nothing today. And I stand by that decision, but I do kind of regret not watching the game.
I think there was like 2 minutes left, and I told on the clock, and I told Mo, I was like, "Oh yeah, the Vikings should lose. This game should be done in like 3 minutes." It was 30 minutes later, and when Patrick Peterson picked off Josh Allen for the dub, and I went running for a lap around the alleyway because I couldn't believe it. So it was all in all good. Yeah, I'll take the dub. It's good for them to win, and then
for you, Rupert's Whiskey is a celebration whiskey this week.
Absolutely. We were celebrating Christian Darrisaw, Justin Jefferson, Patrick Peterson, and Kirk Thuggins, baby. That's what we were doing.
Well, let's jump into the rundown because much like for Shane and his beloved Vikings, this was a fairly good week for the Calgary Flames. They played 3 games. On the first game, they ran their season high losing streak to 7 games.
They played good.
They've played, I would say this of the losing streak, the streak is dead, long live the streak. I'll say this about the losing streak. They played poorly enough. They played bad in the Nashville game.
And 2 out of 7 games, they were clearly
7. They were the decidedly worst team. There's a few games
4 out of 7 they were better.
There was a few games that they were in it, and then they just let it get away. And that's, we talk about finding ways to win. This was a team that found ways to lose for 7 games. It's just mistakes, bad times, and then they played. Let's start off with the Thursday game. Thursday night, they were in scenic Boston to play the Boston Bruins, and they lost 3-1. It was a very close game. It was essentially a 2-1 game for most of the duration. It was close. It was good. They played just poorly enough to lose. Dan Vladar was sharp, but he couldn't steal them the game. He held the minutes. Goaltending was not the reason the Flames lost 3-1. They just couldn't get that proverbial next goal. They needed someone to just get that next goal for them to make it, a 2-1 game when it was tied, or to make it 2-2 when it was 2-1, and they just couldn't get it. When they played Winnipeg, though, they came home for Saturday night, played Winnipeg, and they won 3-2. It was a tight game, but the Flames were the better team through most of it, and they stayed on top of their players. They honestly, they were good when they needed to be, and they were occasionally very good when they needed to be, and I think they were the deserving victors. Winnipeg,
Winnipeg, I have never seen Kyle Connor take more uncontested shots from the slot and not score a goal. That's the one thing. I saw Kyle Connor get 3 or 4 prime looks right between the hash marks.
And he missed the net a bunch of times.
And Markstrom stopped a couple. But I was like,
I think he was credited with 2 shots, and then maybe he had another 3 or 4 that were just, I have no idea.
Can't leave. Kyle Connor's a top 10 goal scorer in the NHL, and he was just left uncovered multiple times. It baffled me. If there's any one guy you need to make sure you know of where he's at and covered on the Jets, since Ehlers is hurt, it's Kyle Connor. Not Scheifele, not Wheeler, not anybody else. It's Kyle Connor. And I'm specifically watching him on the ice, not the puck, anything. I don't always watch the puck. And I'm watching him skate, and I'm watching him just roll off, and then no one follow him. And that, to me, I was like, y'all need to figure that out, because that was a big error, and they're lucky it didn't burn them. Lucky. They
were better, I'd say, generally for 5-on-5 defense against the LA Kings. They ended up winning a game that was much closer than it really should have been, 6-5. The Flames won. To quote assistant coach Ryan Huska, who joined us post-game in the media lounge, you're not going to win many games giving up 5 goals. The Flames, I'll say this, they gave up a power play goal, which that'll happen. I didn't like Nazem Kadri's penalty, but it was a penalty. It was a penalty caused by turnovers, and Kadri had to basically hook back and hook a guy to try to get the puck out, which you don't want to do it. It was a bad penalty to take, and it led to a goal, but it was also like a penalty caused by just general disorganization. The second goal also by Arthur Kaliyev. Actually, I'll say this about the we talk a lot, we say a lot of nice things about the Flames penalty kill. I'm going to throw some rocks at the penalty kill right now. So Victor Arvidsson made a nice pass from below the goal line across the slot to Arthur Kaliyev, who was pinching in from the right point. It was a nice pass. It was a nice shot. I didn't think the pass is something they should have been able to do, considering if you're at a penalty kill, you should have that 4-man box or even just the triangle with the rover right around home plate to prevent those kind of high octane passes. Like if you're penalty killing, they should maybe be able to get some stuff from the point, but you should be able to get things through. So
no, nothing through the middle of the ice. That's
a good shot. You
want. Give everyone everything from the outside. And then those cross ice passes are what burn you the most. And the one that stings in my skull is the Jamie Alexiak cross ice pass goal from the playoff bubble. And anytime anyone can get a Royal Road pass through where your PK should be, you should get torched. They should score that goal, and you should feel shame for letting that happen.
The Flames, I think, generally speaking, that the penalty by Kadri and the general defensive disorganization speaks to how the Flames started that game, but then they got their wits about them. I did not like the second Kaliyev goal. It was a really good effort. I'm not saying it was a good effort, but you also got to feel bad for Jacob Markstrom because he plays the scoring chance. It goes past the net, so he's like, okay, never mind. Then starts getting up, and then the puck goes in off him. Like that's just
if you watch that video, he very clearly tries to shove off and get back, and you can watch his leg. He shoves and then he doesn't go anywhere. And then as soon as he doesn't go anywhere, it's an
awkward position for the goaltender to move into.
I think he tried to push instead of goalies can move side to side easily. He was upwards challenging the shot facing and he needed to turn his body and then kick off and come back. And he didn't have enough. He had to do
a lot of small things that take some effort all at once, and they're all awkward wearing that much padding. So
and you have to twist your body and move your leg and push with enough velocity to get back.
Again, so the puck goes past the net. Kaliyev chases it down and hucks it on net. Great move by Kaliyev. I don't know why Kaliyev had an open lane even below the red line.
There was two kings there. There was two kings there. One Flame wasn't covering the guy that got the puck. And then because Markstrom, he did the right things, everything right first, square up for the shot. The rebound is supposed to be controlled by these skaters. To walk away, stop. Yeah. Goalie can't be in charge of stopping all.
There was nil for puck retrieval on that, and nil for any kind of zone protection. So a lot of things went wrong there.
Well, credit also to Arthur Kaliyev, who was a goal scorer. He was always been a goal scorer, and he has a wicked hard shot. So I don't know how he became a 32nd overall pick. I don't know. Everyone at the draft was talking about him being a top 15, but it's a steal for the Kings, and he's already playing top power play, top
Fuda and Unetti, man. Fuda and Unetti, they know where to find guys.
Yeah, but I also didn't like the Kopitar goal. The Kopitar goal, there was no one in front. It was
the Kopitar goal. I was sitting next to one of the people who cover the Kings, John Rosen, who now I believe he's with Forum Report, formerly at The Athletic and a bunch of other places. So anyone, if you're in the LA area and you want to follow the Kings, I'm just giving a cheap plug to Forum Report because John's a good guy. But John mentioned, I'm like, it was playing there. He's like, I bet you they thought he'd pass it because Kopitar is habitually a very good passer. He's a very unselfish player. So if you're the Flames, and granted it's 4-on-4 and the Flames are kind of disorganized, Ryan Huska alluded to the Flames were just making mistakes, double covering the wrong guy, as in instead of you go to your guy and I go to my guy, we both go to the wrong guy. And so Kopitar is open. So if you leave Kopitar open, he's not a bad player. He's
a Hall of Fame player.
I'll say this, talking to goaltenders, the low stick side is the hardest thing to save.
Mm-hmm. And he had time. He had space and time. The only thing I don't like about it was there was no trap. Like when the shot was released, Markstrom had a very clear line of sight, and the shot came from the top of the circles. That's something he
saw it the whole way. The shot just beat him.
Yeah, so that's one that I'm like, okay, that you have.
It's a
That's
Hall of
on you.
Famer cranking off a shot from the top of the circles. It's, you give him enough, you give Anze Kopitar enough cracks at it, he's going to score that goal, and he happened to score that goal. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna disparage the goaltender too much, but there's a bunch of things. We've covered enough Jacob Markstrom to know that Jacob Markstrom thinks that Jacob Markstrom should allow 0 goals a game, and every time he gets up a goal, he looks at the video and goes, what did I do wrong there? Which is probably the way you want your goalie to be wired.
I'm okay criticizing him there because I'm going to compliment him because he made an actual game-saving stop on Kopitar in the last.
With like 20 seconds left.
So that was going in if Markstrom didn't completely throw his body over, a la Fleury in the Cup final against the Red Wings. He dives over, not even like there's no rhyme or rhythm to it. He's just trying to get in front of the puck, and he stops Kopitar with a flailing arm. I think it was. It hit his arm, I believe. And
of
it
course,
didn't go in. And the Flames win.
We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the windmill.
Yeah. We need to mention the greatest save. I love that. And the best part is I think Mike Gould and a bunch of other people are like, oh, look, he made the Brett O'Bara save. And I freaking text my dad, and my dad's like, dude, it's Bill Ranford. My dad's like, do these kids not know who Bill Ranford is? And I'm like, no, they don't. They have no kids knowledge today, of the NHL before 1997.
Former Bruins / Oilers great Bill Ranford.
But that and I was thinking of Tim Thomas and Dominic Hasek used to like do the freaking flailing saves all the time. But shout out to that Bill Ranford reference, because I thought that was like, I was like, oh, that's nice.
We're making a few old Oilers and Bruins fans very happy with these references. Yeah, I thought against the Kings, the Flames did a lot of good things. They took away the Kings' hope for a while, and then the 4-on-4 goal made it. Actually, that the goal so the Flames were up at one point. Was it 5-3?
5-3. I think yeah.
Yeah, it was 5-2. Then
no, it was 5-2, then 5-3, then 6-3.
Yeah, so the third Kings goal was a dump, a point shot that missed the net entirely, and then a lucky bounce right to Fiala at the far post.
Quick hands too.
It's a great play, really heads up play. Some sleepy defense. I thought the Flames were really good for about 40 minutes of the game, and in spurts they were a little bit sleepy, and the Kings took advantage of their sleepiness. The 4-on-4 goal was another bout of sleepiness, I think, a little bit of disorganization, but you got to give credit where it's due. The new lines were good. Huberdeau scored a goal.
All 4 lines with a 5-on-5 goal the first period they're together.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You'll tell me if I'm misremembering this. 6 different goal scorers?
Yeah, there were 6 different goal scorers, and the first 4 in the first period were all 5-on-5 by all 4, each line.
And then Ruzicka got the second 5-on-5 goal for his line.
Yes, and then the power play goal.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the kind of win. Lindholm got the power play goal.
Yeah,
it's the kind of win where you look at it and go, okay, well, was the goaltending good? The goaltending was good when they needed to be good, but it could have been better. How was the power play? Power play was good. Penalty kill was pretty good. Their 5-on-5 play was good, except for some coverage sloppiness, which they're working on it. I think they're rolling through a bunch of different defensive pairings. I thought it was really funny that after the Winnipeg game, Daryl Sutter remarked that they hadn't found the magic pairings on the blue line yet, and then they basically kept rotating defensemen in the first period. And part of the second period too. They did not use much
pairs, really.
Simone.
They left Simone on the bench, and they're loving Zadorov's play right now. And to be fair, he's backing it up with strong play. So
when I'll say this about Zadorov, Zadorov can't carry a pairing on his own.
No,
Zadorov with, say, a Uyghur or a Tanev or an Anderson, sure. Zadorov with a DeSimone, not as good. With a Mackey, not as good. With a
he's worked
not as good.
Super well with Uyghur so far, which is why like when my ideal pairings, if and knock on wood, when everyone's back and healthy, that's under current.
Are you thinking Rasmus Anderson, Noah Hannafin,
yep,
Uyghur, Zadorov, and then Tanev, Shillington?
Yes, and then you don't really have
Stone's your 7.
Pair. Yeah, and Stone's your 7. You don't really have a third pair. You have someone that you've constantly rolled out against top competition. And so when you're at 5-on-5, you can just roll.
And I would think that makes the pairings more balanced. And I think,
well, then if
you have someone that can be your puck movement guy in all three pairings.
And you don't have to pick part of what Calgary's been doing the last 2 years to find their defensive success for their defensemen is putting them in the position to succeed and not giving them heavy defensive zone starts. With those three pairings that you just mentioned, you don't really need to worry about who's in the defensive zone.
You can just throw guys out there.
All three lines, you're covered, right? Whatever. So you can, if you're really concerned or want goals, you can just load Hanifin and Anderson up with offensive zone starts then. And then you have your two best offensive defensemen always working in the offensive zone. It's ideal.
And I think it gives you the ability to, like you said, knock on wood, potentially. Chris Tanev is a great D-zone guy. Like, you can give Chris Tanev D-zone starts for days, and he'll give you really reliable minutes. That's kind of why you go out and get a Chris Tanev, because once you have that, it gives you the ability to do a lot of different things. But I'll say this. The Flames are missing Oliver Shillington's puck movement, in the sense that I think Shillington's the best guy on the team amongst the defensemen in terms of puck retrievals down low, and then, couple steps, quick pass, they're out. Or figuring out where holes are and using his speed to get separation and jump into the rush, and then get separation and jump back. So I think those are the kind of things they're missing. But yeah, I agree with you completely.
Based on their use of their sixth D-man with the injuries right now, I would not be surprised if at any point in time
they don't have a 6 D-man.
They don't. Well, they don't.
They have 5 D-man.
That's what I'm about to say.
Somebody who's just hanging out.
The prototypical Brad Treliving trade deadline ad of a 4th round or a 3rd round or a 5th round pick for a depth defenseman, I would almost bet money that we'd see that. I'm not going to, but I would almost bet money that happens at some point.
But the cap situation makes it challenging. Right now, like, once Michael Stone's back, maybe you can figure that out. And honestly, once Michael Stone's back, maybe you don't need it anymore. But
I think you need it for insurance purposes.
This is the first time they've really had injuries since the Daryl Sutter regime started anew. And I think I'll say this: you never want to have a team get in injury trouble, because it's never good. There's never a time where you're like, man, you know what? I don't think Brad Treliving was sitting in his office being like, after he made all the trades and all the signings after they signed Kadri, and going, man, you know what I want? I want to see how we do with take away Shillington. No Shillington, don't know he's coming back. You know what else? Take away Stone, take away Tanev. We don't need him. I want to see how we do without them. They did not. It's not like you're. It's not like you're writing out the plan for the season. You're going, you know what I want to do? I want to be using Nick DeSimone and Dennis Gilbert as a defensive pairing against Boston, and Boston's undefeated at home.
And 11-2 Boston, yeah.
11-2 Boston, who's undefeated at home. Because you know why? We don't have the cap space to bring up Nick Beloche. So let's just use the guys that are a little bit less expensive and see how they do.
Well, it's a good benefit for guys it's a good situation for guys that want to, or are fringe players. If you sign that lesser contract, there could be a spot for you. Like, teams are in cap crunches.
DeSimone signed a lesser, Nick Meloche, $950 for Nick Meloche ain't bad on a one-way. He's earned that money. But the problem is, I don't
guess
think
what? You can't come and play right now.
All the weird cap stuff. So I think that should do it. Yeah, Flames win 2 out of 3 games. The losing streak is over. The winning streak technically has not begun, because you need to win 3 games for it to be a streak. But in the words of Luke Brown from Major League, they won yesterday, they won today, they win tomorrow. That's a winning streak. Let's move on, Shane. Player spotlight. So we were talking before you started recording, and I wrote about this on the site on Wednesday morning. I really liked Adam Ruzicka on the wing. And so just so folks know, Adam Ruzicka, tall drink of water, tall, jacked. He's got the good hair. He's got the good face. He basically, if you were trying to imagine what you wanted a hockey player to be, well, you probably tick most of the boxes that Adam Ruzicka ticks. He's got this, and because he's got the size and he's got the scoring ability, he's been a center pretty much since he was a kid. He plays forward. He's the big kid. They put him up in the middle because that's how you win hockey games. And he won a lot of hockey games in Slovakian junior and in Czechian junior. And he got called up he got put in the import draft. He got selected by the Sarnia Sting. big kid, threw him up the middle. He really did well in Sarnia. He did well in I forget the other team he was in. Sudbury, thank you.
Yep.
Sudbury too in their playoff run. So he was always a center. They never used him on the wing because he's always one of the bigger kids in this team. And typically you move your tiny centers to the wing to help them succeed. And then you move them up the middle once you have a bit more success. They never need to do that with Ruzicka. In the AHL, he played 3 years in Stockton, always up the middle because granted, Stockton wasn't really, flush with centers and
really
he was always bigger than
he
was really good in the AHL and he's bigger than the other centers they had. So he's always been played center. So this is my long way of saying Adam Ruzicka has never really played the wing. He played one game during the preseason because during the offseason, as you might have noticed, the Flames made some moves. And so up the middle to start the season until Kevin Rooney turned out to be so in his role. But they on paper, they had Rooney, who was an established NHLer in a bottom six role. And he seemed like he'd be a guy who could fit a lot of niches for them. And then you have Backlund, Kadri, and young master Lindholm. So none of those three guys are going to move to the wing. So
Sutter said that too. He's like, when they put Ruzicka on the wing at camp, he was like, well, look up the middle. You think you're cracking that?
Yeah. So he played one game on the wing. And I'll say this. I love you, Connor Zary. We don't mean this to be mean. I don't think throwing Ruzicka on the wing in a throwaway preseason game against Seattle with your center is a 20-year-old kid who's in his first NHL camp, Connor Zary. He had a good camp, but he wasn't in danger of making the team. And Sonny Milano on the other wing, who just was tremendously unimpressive. He did not look like he was trying to make a team. He looked like he was trying to remember what day it was or how many days he had left.
Waiting for his contract. He's entitled contract.
He seemed like he was waiting for someone to tell him where to be at all times. So when the connecting guy on your line is a 20-year-old kid, a really good 20-year-old kid, I don't think that's recipe for success. So, Ruzicka was not terribly impressive in his one game. He didn't really look, Daryl used the term, he wasn't efficient on the wing. I would agree with that. He also seemed like he didn't really know exactly where he's supposed to be or what he's supposed to be doing. So he played one game on the wing or in preseason. He played one game as fourth line center. Ironically, both those games were against Seattle during the regular season. And he was, the Flames weren't playing well. That was a game where the Flames blew that late lead to Seattle and ended up losing in regulation to Seattle. First time Seattle's ever beaten the Flames. They did short bench. We didn't see a lot of Ruzicka. And when we did see him, he was fine. He was, let's say nothing about Ruzicka's play in that one game in the regular season at center made you go, that guy needs to play more. So it was really easy to put him back in the press box. With Huberdeau injured, they had to throw him in because they had some other
cap space
kind of working. They didn't have an extra forward on the trip outside of Ruzicka. So they were like, all right, throw him in there, see how he does. And this will shock you, but playing with Elias Lindholm, who's really good, and playing with Tyler Toffoli, who's pretty good to very good, depending on who he's playing against, it worked. And in 4 games, Ruzicka has 4 points in that role. And he looks more and more comfortable and more at home in that role. And I really, really like the details of his game against LA. My only complaint about Ruzicka is I wish he would throw the body around a bit more. Like he's the kind of guy
that uses it effectively though.
He's great at positioning. He's great at using his body to box guys out. I just wish he would throw a hit or shove a guy or I think he needs to be a little bit more of a prick on the ice because he plays too nice. He's really good. And I think when you get into more competitive situations and sort of get his juice going a bit, I think you can have him be that kind of a prick on the ice. I think you can teach him that. But if my big complaint about Adam Ruzicka is I don't think he's being mean enough, then that tells you he's doing a lot of good things because I had to go pretty far down my list to find the complaint of, I don't like how nice he is.
I love when center prospects that have played center for a long time go to the wing because they know what the center wants to do or where their center should be. That's one thing that if you're a winger and you come through minor hockey or winger and you always play wing and that's the only thing you know how to do, it's great. But you also don't know how to read the situations and where the center might be a little to the right here or off to the left, because that's where the support should be coming from. Ruzicka can know that. The other thing he does is he's more effective with his body positioning on the boards. Tyler Toffoli, we talk about him all the time about how great of a board player he is. He's great at having the puck in space and getting it off the boards. He's not so good at getting the puck on the boards on the forecheck. That's where Ruzicka has thrived. He's been the guy, and he said so too.
He's got that long stick too.
He's the guy. He comes in, he establishes positioning, and then he fights for the puck. He's strong enough, he wins the battles, and then he immediately knows to get it up the boards to either Toffoli or around the other side of the boards up to the defenseman, whether it's Zadorov or Weaker, and then establish that board possession until there's space. And he's doing that more effectively on that line than Huberdeau did. That's not blasphemy. I love Huberdeau playing with Michael Backlund right now. Michael Backlund's never played with a weapon as skilled as Huberdeau, and I think that could unlock some things that people might be underrating how much of an impact Backlund can have. But Ruzicka's fit so well. The other thing is, just off the rush, he can just read plays and be deadly and knows how to get to the net. And like you said, that long stick, it prevents it allows for a better target. You know, you lead, you don't pass where the player is, you pass where the player's going. Well, you can give Ruzicka quite the lead with the reach he has. It's just a benefit that a player his size can have. And usually 6'4" guys get lumped in minor hockey as a defenseman. It's a pleasure to be able to have one as a forward, skilled forward with decent hands and a great shot and a fantastic offensive instinct. It's about giving him the constant opportunity. Slapping him between two guys that aren't good finishers or aren't good skaters aren't going to help him. He needs to be playing with skilled players.
Just off the top of your head, what draft class was he from?
20. Well, they don't have anyone from the 2018 class playing, so I'm going to say 17.
He was a fourth rounder in 17. So the Flames just recently had their first round pick from 17 claimed off waivers. They do not have Juuso Välimäki. And I think what didn't work with Välimäki can really be instructive for the Flames in terms of what can work with Ruzicka. Because I think, if you're looking, if we're being blunt about this, what was the path for Välimäki to be a regular on the team? Not just this year, but the last couple years.
Since the coaching change, I
would even argue before the coaching change. Like even under Bill Peters, his role was sort of fuzzy, and I would say for the Flames for getting forwards into the NHL, they've been sort of iffy in terms of roles, because Sam Bennett was basically, he was a center, and then he was a winger, and then he's a center again. The best guy they've done this with was Andrew Mangiapane, because Andrew Mangiapane never played center at any point.
Just put him on the wing.
Yeah, so they just threw him on the wing, and when he came in, he happened to have the benefit that he came in that one year where there was an opening on the fourth line. He came up mid-season, and he had a very clear role. They said, hey, forecheck the shit out of these guys, and he was playing with Derek Ryan, who's a really good positional center, and playing with Garnet Hathaway, who's a really good physical winger, a good energy guy, and it worked because all three guys had the things they did well, and they complemented each other really well.
All three of them also ended up with tremendous defensive metrics. Garnet Hathaway is kind of like one of them role players that got away, like one that got away. Like he ended up being, he's been well worth more than the 1.5 he's getting in Washington. But man, in retrospect,
maybe the Flames should have kept him, because they've basically been trying to fill that role. And I think Trevor Lewis does that pretty well, but I think Trevor Lewis's skill set's a little bit different.
And 9 years of age. Let's just and hundreds and hundreds of hockey games. But Madge didn't have to worry about offense. Like, hey, you're gonna play with these two guys.
And then the offense was the offense was a plus though.
Yeah, any scores a bonus. Just be consistent.
And then what they did was they basically kept his role the same, but put him with more and more skilled players.
He started scoring goals.
Yeah. So, but nothing about his game. If you look at game tape with Mangiapane, his role and what success was in that role and what doing it well looked like was always the same. Mm-hmm. And it was just like the expectations of, you're a fourth liner, maybe you scored 10 goals. Turned into, you're a middle six guy, maybe you scored 15 to 20 goals, and then he scored 35. So
they needed something to spark offense. It's the number one issue. Like, they're playing well. The number one issue is putting the puck in the net right now. Is putting in the net. Yep. So anything that inspired any sort of offensive click, which Ruzicka did with Lindholm. Lindholm's looked like a completely different player. Like,
Yeah.
that's my compliment. Lindholm's looked more confident. He's looked more like he's more familiar. And maybe that's another prospect of Ruzicka being part of this system for 3 years and Huberdeau just coming into it.
And I was about to say that because Ruzicka has sat upstairs and watched the games and taken notes
2
and done
years.
video, and he's done his homework, and he knows the systems really well. And he knows Huska, and he knows enough guys and enough about the system that when he comes in, they said, "Hey, you want to do this?" And he knows he's played with Toffoli before. He knows Lindholm from being on the same team and from studying his game tape because he's a center, so he knows what Lindholm's going to do because Lindholm's a good center. I think that the reasons why it's working are like that. I'll also say, again, Sonny Milano slander here. I really think Ruzicka, there's an urgency to his game when he's on the wing the last 4 games. We'll see if he keeps it up. But
he's fighting for a position too, right?
That's the thing. You can
he's
see
actually fighting every shift to stay in the lineup.
He's not looking around being like, where am I supposed to be? There's no nervousness in his game. There's varying degrees of confidence in terms that you can see in his body language, but there's also just to the idea of he scored that goal coming in as the trailer after Toffoli and the referee positioning led to a turnover by Sean Jersey, and then Toffoli poked it up the middle poked it over to Lindholm. Lindholm tried to toe drag to the front of the net, couldn't quite get it past Jonathan Quick, but smart guy that he is, Ruzicka goes, okay, I'm just going to go to the front of the net because I bet you if the goalie stops it, the goalie stops it. If the goalie doesn't stop it, it's right there for me. And it was right there for him. So he picked up the scraps. But that's a confident play. That's not it's not the what am I supposed to do with my hands right now kind of play. There's no awkwardness or tentativeness in that play. It was basically I'm going to go to the net because why not, right?
And it's maybe after you go to the net, you can hustle back and get back into your spot. And I think maybe Jonathan Huberdeau is still thinking about, okay, well, where do I need to be defensively so I'm not going to get in trouble or benched or moved? Because right at this point of the season, we've seen people benched. We've seen people booted out of the lineup because of their play. We've seen people shifted and shuffled in every way, shape, and form. And, maybe just having he needs to get to a point where he's not thinking about everything and just doing, and doesn't take 20 games. That doesn't take 20 games. And when you're a winger and you have to adjust to how the center plays, that's another thing entirely. And let's be real, none of these centers are playing like Sam Bennett, right? Like Sam Bennett and Florida isn't playing and keep the puck on the boards. They're up the middle of the ice and passing.
I would say the Flames play very structured, where the Panthers play like Jazz. And if you're only used to Jazz, then it takes a while. But who's the opposite of Jazz? I'd say Michael Backlund's the opposite of Jazz, where Michael Backlund's basically Swiss efficiency. He's just a metronome in terms of where he is at any point in the ice. So if you're trying to take the noise out of Huberdeau's game, I can't really think of a better guy to put him with.
Well, and the other thing, I think I mentioned this on Twitter, Backlund, he gets the reputation for defense. And so everyone always assumes, okay, he's defending. He's not. He spends more of his time in the attacking zone than he does the defensive zone. He gets consistently more shot attempts, not classifications be damned. He gets more shot attempts for than against 6-4. In order to do that, you need to be in the offensive zone enough to do such a thing.
If you want to say something negative about Backlund, the worst thing you can say about Backlund is he's not a finisher.
Yeah, he's more of a just a defensive driver. But and this is why I like when Daryl says points are just a result of how you play. If you play good defense, you'll end up getting points. The number one thing you need to worry about is your proper defense. And, Michael Backlund's multiple time 20 goal scorer, multiple time 40 points getter. You play him with Huberdeau, his potential goes up. But I mean, we're way off the Ruzicka topic now. It just kind of bred into.
I think Ruzicka and Huberdeau are sort of intermingled, though. I don't think you can really talk about what's working with Ruzicka without getting some insight into what wasn't working and what could start working with Huberdeau.
Well, and then, Huberdeau's a guy that everyone says is working hard and is always looking. Well, now you've got a couple games of, okay, well, what was Ruzicka doing that I wasn't, that is making Lindholm click? And you can go to the video coach and say, can I watch a couple of the things he's doing just to see if I need to do something different? Because if he's ever put back there, which, let's be real.
Eventually he will be.
He's going to be back there at some point. Now he's got a reference of what to do. But I mean, if if the points don't stop, you can't take Ruzicka away. That's the thing. Like Ruzicka's there until the dam dries up. So
yeah, and for his sake, I don't think it'd be a great story if he just sort of stuck around for a while, because that's just he's a hardworking kid. He's put in the time in the minors. He showed so much promise last year, and he's still super young. He's what, 23?
He's 23. He's super skilled. He can't. He's requires waivers. No team on their like Arizona would take him, or whoever's dead last would take him.
Oh, it'll be probably Columbus or Arizona or
Chicago or someone that's got a tank parked out front. But they would take him in a heartbeat. So the Flames know he's a valuable asset. Now he's proving he's a valuable asset.
You ain't waving a guy who can play center and wing who's 6'4" and can score.
It's Daryl's dream player, right? Like he's the big guy that can drive play, and he doesn't have to be on like I said, because he knows how the center works. You basically got two centermen out there, and they can work off each other. And if Lindholm wants to, and if they can get to a place where Lindholm's in checking, well then okay, well Ruz cover for him, play back. You should recognize that, and that's things happen so fast. That's the kicker. You need to have high level, intelligent, recognizable plays and players that can pick up on even the slightest change in what you're supposed to be doing. And centerman, naturally grown centerman, can do that. And that's what Ruzicka is. So I've just got nothing but nice things. And I'm just glad Warner talked about it on Barnburner too, is the youth. There's a lot of veterans in this team and not a lot of guys fighting for contracts this year. Like there's no real oomph. So, injecting someone that's young and still has something to play for and earn for, that could go a long way in invigorating the veterans and being like, all right, no, we need to be at his pace every single game. Like that kid that's working his butt off, I'm not there right now.
The word I would use is disruptive, but in a positive way, because if somebody like him is pushing for time and they need to find a spot for him, it makes everyone a little bit on their toes. And I think when that's happening, that's a good thing.
Someone's going to be like, well, am I going to have a job? What is going on? Like they love
someone isn't getting power play time because Adam Ruzicka is getting power play time. That's important.
That's less points. So in terms of the Ruzicka discussion, I'm pumped. I think he's got more than enough skill to stay in the lineup. And I think he is with skilled enough players right now to show that. And that's great because that causes a disruption at the bottom of the lineup. Anytime you put more skill into the lineup anywhere, I'm going to be a happy guy.
All right, let's move on to our Betway discussion.
Hey, I didn't do that bad.
Organic betting discussion brought to you by Betway. So every episode on the show, we basically just shit all over the hard work that Shane puts in on his Betway bets of the day. This will shock you folks, but it's called betting because it's not a sure thing. Please play responsibly. And so Shane, every game day on FlamesNation.ca has his Betway bets of the day, where he provides you with a rationale and then 3 picks from Betway that he's saying you should try this because. And he provides you with a lot of detail. And unfortunately, because life and especially hockey is chaos, grown men with knife shoes on, battling with weapons over frozen rubber, and they're allowed to fight. This is just a weird sport. This sport shouldn't exist.
Best sport ever, baby.
It's friggin' sport, and I love it. But because of all that chaos, sometimes things don't go the way Shane says they will, or thinks they could. So this week's picks, Shane did okay. He had a couple of good games and one not so good game. Thursday against Boston, he bet a Bruins win and Pastrnak to get 1 point or more. That happened. He bet Lindholm would get more than 2.5 shots. Lindholm had 2 shots. You just missed it. And he bet Bruins win and Brad Marchand would get 1 or more points, which also happened. So
thank you, empty net goals.
Much like Meatloaf, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. And he did pretty well. The Flames won on Saturday against Winnipeg, but Shane did not. He bet.
I did bad.
His picks were Flames win and Kadri 1+1 or more points. Kadri got 0 points. He bet Kyle Connor 2.5 shots over. He got 2 shots, so that did not convert. And he bet total shots over 63.5, as in 64 or above. Typically a good bet for the Flames, but they went under by several. It was a total of 58. So he went 0 on Saturday after going 2 out of 3 on Thursday.
But I learned.
Yes, you did. The Monday night game, he made some adjustments. So he bet The only one that didn't happen, and this was out the window very quickly.
This was like
halfway through the game. Shane's like,
you didn't even get
nope.
through the first quarter of your beer, and this bet was lost.
Yeah, it was. He bet under 6.5 total goals, so as in he went 6 or fewer, and there was 11 goals scored in the game. Calgary alone basically destroyed
the first period. The end of the first period, I was like, all right, no more goals, please.
Yeah, it was a 4-2 game after 20 minutes, and he was just praying for a defensive shell from both sides, and it didn't happen. So that one did not convert. But the ones that did for him, Elias Lindholm, 1 or more points. He got 3 points, so that happened. And total shots in the game under 62.5, as in 62 or fewer. They combined for 59. So he had 2 games of 2 out of 3. And 1 game of Ofer, but the Ofer kind of made sense. And if you're a Flames fan and you were betting on his picks, you're still kind of happy because they won. You were just, out a little bit of money in your pocket. But I think collectively, Shane's picks probably brought you out ahead.
Well, both the shots on goal ones I missed by 1. And I'm pretty sure they both had looks where they missed the net. So
it was basically a
Kyle Connor for sure. Kyle Connor had like at least 3 opportunities to at least hit Markstrom's blocker, and he just missed the net completely. So I personally, you can all personally address Kyle Connor for that one. But the one thing I liked about the Kings game is the goals may have went in, but that's due to subpar goaltending performances from either side. The actual
subpar defensive performances on both sides.
No, because the shot limitation was still there. For the Flames, the entire Kings performance resembled nothing like their summarization would have ever put you towards. Calgary was, though, and the Lindholm one makes me upset. There was an assist line for plus 200, and I was like, no, it's more likely the point. Let's go with the point. It's pays out less, but it's more likely to occur.
You have more possibilities that result in success there.
But that's what I do when I do it. And like, this is why I want to bring it up for the people is like, I weigh it. I'm like, is it worth to just do the assists or the goals or the points? Like it's more likely points because it covers both, but it always pays less in terms of victory money.
But those are the trade-offs you got to make, man.
So that's part of it, right? Like that's why I do it. I go, okay, well, that's why I do 3 bets too. And I always try to do one that's okay, who's gonna win, something to do with shots on goal, and then something to do with points. Typically someone on either team that's leading their team in expected goals percentage. And those
one of these games you should just do nothing but long shots. Be like, I'm gonna pick the biggest machine on each team.
I'm going to put in the get informed section. I'll put at Pike's request, we're throwing this out the window. I'm just going to pick 3 random.
You're going to pick a guy who was a healthy scratch the game before to score the game winner. You're going to pick the backup goalie to get 40 saves. You're going to pick the trainer to somehow end up in the game somehow.
Okay, so here's an interesting thing that I've avoided specifically that would have been a lock previous years. If the Flames were about to play the Kings, I would have bet or the Jets, I'd have bet the over on penalty minutes. Because Matthew Tkachuk specifically caused a lot of piss-offedness, anger, whatever, with those people. He also apparently, Hank Green hates him apparently, but that's a whole nother thing. But I specifically thought about that because the games against the Jets, the Kings were always violent and they're always filled with multiple guys going to the boxes and fights and scrums. But I've taken that out. Yeah, they still have Anderson and Zadorov and whatever, but the hate's not there anymore. It's the same thing against the Oilers.
It was for the 2 teams that were involved. It was surprisingly gentlemanly.
It was even with the Oilers all year long. This is the trend. The hate's not been there. It's not been the punch in the face.
2 fighting majors so far this year, and one of them was Dennis Gilbert. And if you had said to me, Ryan, at some point in the season, Dennis Gilbert will have half the fighting majors on the team, I would say,
I'd have bet a lot of money.
Which team? The Flames or the Wranglers?
I would have bet a lot of money to tell you that Dennis Gilbert was not going to co-lead any category on the Flames 15 games in at any point, whether it's 15 or 30. 82. So yeah, no, but that's the thing.
I hope next week you have more 2 out of 3 games. because 2 out of 3 is always fun, because at least that way you learn something from the bet that didn't convert, and the other 2 you get to brag a little bit.
Well, yeah, the offers, if I get an offer, the game went completely off script. And the more games we play after 30 is when things get what's called regularized, where you can pick 30 random samples and it actually normalizes the statistical numbers, and you get a generalization, and you can start making generalizations.
Okay. So our prediction is by Christmas, Shane will get really good, or he'll just show that he's not very good at it at all.
Yeah, my prediction is I should do a lot better from January to the end of the year than I do from now to January. Fingers crossed, of course.
Fingers crossed. Let's move on to the listener mailbag, Shane. So we right before recording, we went out, did a call, and Shane quote tweeted my tweet and said,
"I will answer anything.
You will answer anything." So we're gonna have 2 of them. One is not a hockey question, Shane.
I love this because it happened today, so it's relevant, and I'm a Blue Jays fan.
Shout out to our partners at Blue Jays Nation. You can catch Blue Jays Nation Radio throughout the season with Cam Lewis, and I forget who the hell else does it with him, but it's always Cam.
I know Yaremchuk and Zach tweet about the Blue Jays all the time too.
We get nice shout out to Blue Jays Nation. But anyway,
but was the Hernandez? So for people that don't know, longtime Blue Jay Teoscar Hernandez was traded for a relief pitcher and a starting pitcher from the Miami Marlins, and Mariners. Sorry. Anyways, David Hutchinson at 780 Dave Hutch asks us, was the Hernandez trade good value if they can land Nimmo or another power left bat? And I actually have I had a buddy in my group chat send me something earlier from Baseball Trade Values on Twitter at Baseball Values. So it says, today the Mariners acquired offensive fielder Oscar Hernandez from the Blue Jays in exchange for right-handed pitcher Eric Swanson and left-hand pitcher Adam Macko. The deal is rejected by our model as an overpay by Seattle.
Yeah. So here's the thing with Hernandez. He was the right fielder, very good right fielder, or left fielder.
Left fielder.
Good left fielder. Well, you can play either side.
Oh, right.
That's a nice thing. But he's a really versatile left fielder. And actually, shout out to the Athletics' Caitlin McGrath. She actually predicted this a few days ago. Her prediction on the Athletics site, they did a prediction for each of the league's teams for a move they'd make, and she predicted very accurately that they would trade Teoscar Hernandez. And her rationale was this: they got too many right-handed bats, and it makes them it makes it challenge. They were very heavy with righties, and it makes it challenging for them to match up against pitchers in different situations. They were okay with righty-righty matchups this season. Traditionally, though, you want to have some lefties because that way you can get a little bit better matchups. And also, Hernandez was, I believe, ARB eligible and was slated to make something like, I think, NHL or MLB Trade Tracker or something. One of these sites did a projection of what he would probably get in ARB, and it was like $14 million. So if the idea is you want to move George Springer from center field, where he has to run around a ton, onto one of the sides so you can save his mobility a bit, that's a plus. You save the money from not paying Hernandez that much, and then you can go out and get another bat. So I think that works. I really did not like the Jays' middle relief this year. I thought I liked their closer. I liked their starting rotation for the most part until it got injured. But I think they just needed more pitching. And this, they had enough bats. They were a kind of team that I would say this. I would say that the Toronto Blue Jays were in a lot of ways the Edmonton Oilers of baseball, where if they're going to beat you, they'd have to have their offense going. And they didn't really have the ability as much as they wanted to keep games low scoring and to just grind it out with good pitching, especially once you got past the rotation. So I think you take away Hernandez, you replace his bat with someone else, and then you take that strength and just add it to the back end of the bullpen. I think it's a good value. It sucks though, because he was such a fun player to watch. And
they need bullpen help so bad. Like
and
even
you can't have
and they
everything.
need
You can't have everything.
You can't. I think you ideally would want one. Kikuchi didn't turn out, and Ryu is on a decline, so ideally you'd want one more starting pitcher, so you can Stripling's. I think Stripling left too. So you've got Gasman and Manoa, and you just need one more. You ideally want, and well, you hope Barrios responds. But you still want one more pitcher. You need left-hand bats, and I think, and all the talk is Springer switching from center to right. The biggest fish in the entire outfield sea right now is it could be Joey Gallo, but it's pretty sure it's Brandon Nimmo, who is a left-hand bat. If you're truly going all in with the core you have, that's someone you probably should prioritize. The left-hand bat you want to bring in, you don't want to be just casual about it. They do have a catcher, like they could. I don't think they want to trade Danny Jansen, but if they can't address their out, like they've been very good at addressing their needs via trade if they need to. So getting Matt Chapman specifically, if they need to address the outfield issues, they'll make a trade. Atkins and they'll get it done. They're here to compete. They're going to make the moves. So Teo needed to go. It sucks. It sucks because the vibe in the dugout that he had with Vladdy was probably one of the most entertaining ever. Like if anybody hit a home run, just watching the reaction between Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Teoscar Hernandez was kind of just bliss. And I'm going to miss that. But they're still young and fun. So
they're going to be young and
exciting
fun and with better ability to manage games with better pitching.
Yeah. And honestly, bring me any pitcher with the pitching guru back there. Just give me any pitcher. Let's see what he can do with it.
What do you got for hockey questions or non-baseball questions?
Non-baseball, we had like 3. It wasn't much.
You gotta pick one.
We didn't. To be fair to absolutely everybody, we didn't give you very much time. I'm ignoring all the Shillington stuff because we respect privacy and that thing. This one's not bad, but I just want to just go through them all one more time. Flammenwerfer, I like the question. I would rather talk about roster people. It's Justin Temple, 41 minutes ago. What is it about Sutter or his system that he seems to turn guys who have been deemed too slow or not skilled enough with other organizations into quality players with the Flames? He lists Goodbranson, Stone, Zadorov, and Ritchie as examples.
Structure and simple instructions.
Identity too.
Yeah. Well, because when in the especially if you're Brett Ritchie, let's say this about Brett Ritchie. Brett Ritchie, Pat and I on Flames Talk, I think Pat's like the president of the Brett Ritchie fan club.
Oh, I'm right there with him.
I think one of the things about him is he's not like in terms of role definition and what success looks like for Brett Ritchie. Like you go, hey Brett Ritchie, you know what you do? Play straight line hockey. Like so. It's like if you don't have the puck, go hit a guy and get the puck. Like it's he doesn't have a super high offensive ceiling, but he's big. He can move pretty well. He's not afraid to throw his body around, and he's decent at puck retrieval. And I think having all those attributes, I think Sutter goes, okay, let's focus on what you're good at, and then build a job around what he's good at.
Well, I think we touched on that a lot last year too.
Goodbranson's a good example of that too. Why, like Goodbranson?
Goodbranson was also
they buried Goodbranson in the D zone, and then the entire role was okay. Well, you're a big dude who is hard to move around, so we'll just
put you in the offensive zone with Zadorov. Yeah. Like we'll just feed you offensive zone starts. The one thing you struggle at is getting out of your own zone. So what are we going to do? We're going to eliminate that from your game. We're going to eliminate. And
then when they didn't do that, it was when he was on the PK, and it was like you had usually Chris Tanev with him, who was good at retrievals.
The defense is different for those guys he specifically listed. To me, because of the zone start feeding, and like I said, you put the guy in a position to succeed. Like you don't. Sutter said it himself. You play just because you played top 4 minutes on another team doesn't mean you knew how to play them effectively. Like learning how to play top 4 minutes is learning how to play them and doing them good. Just because you did them doesn't mean you know what you're doing. And so with Zadorov, Stone, and Goodbranson specifically, I think he's put them in a proper situation with minutes and partners and zone deployment where they were able to relearn how to play effectively
and
with the group too, the 5-man group. Richie's different though. I have another thing on Richie.
Let's not take credit away from Ryan Huska. Ryan Huska inherited a bunch of new D-men and managed to stitch them together in a way that worked.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no.
What do you have? What is your point about Richie?
Well, Richie, it's just the reliability of doing the simple things right. It seems like forever ago that Sutter took over, and someone asked, "Well, why is he still playing Richie?" And I was like, "Well, he's inevitable," and that's blown up since everyone memes the crap out of that now. But it's because when you get the puck to Richie at the blue line, it's out of the blue line. It's not turned over. It's not coming back. It's getting deep, and you can change or whatever. He's not. All these fancy turnovers that happen in the neutral zone don't come off Brett Ritchie's stick, which is why you should have Brett Ritchie as your fourth line right wing every single time.
He's either glassing out in the D zone or glassing in on the O zone.
Or deep, or he's passing the puck off someone ahead of him to deflect it in, or he's the guy that's up there to deflect it in. But he does one thing really well, and that's he doesn't turn the puck over in the neutral zone, and he gets it deep. Score. And then last year everyone was criticizing him from the scoring, and I'm like, well, he's not. He's just getting the puck in deep, and then they're chasing.
Now he's showing him.
And now our Alberta boy, he's here and he's scoring and he's getting PP2 time, and he's
PP3 most of the time.
It's recognizing what the player's good at and playing him with other players that play the same way. So all three of them work together. If you start putting when Richie got put with Monahan and Gaudreau, for instance, it's because they needed a guy. The puck wasn't getting deep, and they were constantly turning the puck over and back checking more than attacking. Well, now that you have Johnny's speed and Richie's tenacity, you could see the concept of why you would try it at least.
Part of that was one of the retrieval guys before his body got destroyed on that line was Sean Monahan, and then when you take away Monahan's ability to do that as well, you have to, in order to keep the line working, you kind of either need to replace him or replace that attribute. And Richie was the guy who could do that.
And his goal against LA was the exact epitome of why he's so valuable. It was his forecheck that caused that turnover, and then it was his hustle to immediately recognize that the turnover could cause.
I don't think Alex Edler expected him to just come straight at him. He's just like, okay, I've got a couple minutes to figure out what I'm doing here, and he's like, oh, shoot.
I love their forecheck. They send one guy, they keep two guys back, and then the defenseman back, and they send the one guy at the one defenseman. And if that defenseman, and he gives them two options, you can either go D to your guy, or you could try and force it up the boards. You're not getting the middle of the ice. And so usually they go, and so usually Edler did neither because Richie was on him so quick. And that's the checking. That's the checking that Daryl talks about.
Straight line.
It's don't give them time to think. Be on them, be pursuing them, win the race, win the battle.
I absolutely love Blake Coleman's body language in that 2-on-1 where he's just sort of like coming in from the neutral zone being like, oh, I guess we're doing this then. Okay.
Yeah, like he all of a sudden he's skating along and the puck's just on his stick with literally one defenseman between him and Richie, and it's like, okay, okay, but
I'm sure you hated that.
So yeah, no, Pat to be the president, I'm vice president right there.
No, you're the secretary. You take the minutes of the meetings.
Yeah, that's fine by me. I'll take whatever position as long as I'm working with Patty. That's good.
All right, now coming up, Flames got a busy week ahead of them. So Thursday. Champs. So this is they're out east. They just came from a road trip. They're on another road trip again in the Eastern time zone, which means a lot of weird game times. So Thursday night they're in Tampa Bay to face the Lightning. It's a 5:00 start. The Flames will be wearing red because the Lightning are wearing their reverse retros, which are white and really weird looking. If I might say,
I love them.
I think they're too busy.
The uglier
I don't
jersey
care. They're not for me.
I love it.
They're not trying to sell me a jersey. I'm not a Lightning fan, so it doesn't matter. They're not for me. Then Saturday night, Saturday afternoon, 2:00 start. They're playing the Florida Panthers. Florida will be wearing their cool looking kind of sky blue first retros. The Flames will be in white. Monday, they're in Philadelphia. That's a 5:00 start against the Philadelphia Flyers. The Flyers are wearing their regular damn jerseys. And then Wednesday, another 5:00 against the Pittsburgh Penguins in Pittsburgh, another 5:00. So there's a lot of early start times. So, the nice thing is this coming Saturday, the 2:00 game against Florida, you got Game finishes at 5. You have the whole evening to do something. And then next Saturday, it's the same thing. Next Saturday, they're playing, I believe, the Washington Capitals at 2 o'clock start. So it's another game where
the Capitals game is at noon.
Oh yeah, the Capitals game is at noon.
Capitals
That's the Friday game. The Saturday game is Carolina, and Carolina, the game is at 5, or the game's at 2. So again, the next 2 Saturdays, if you're someone like us who've been used to very, very regimented start times, and it's 8 o'clock every Saturday night, we're sorry. Next 2 weeks, it's a 2 o'clock start. Get some brunch. Sleep.
Flames have a lot of. They've got like 9 mid afternoons games this year. I know I went through every single game on the calendar. So
we're knocking out like 3 weird games in this one road trip.
Maybe one of the most important, like Florida is getting their franchise leader in points back for the first time. So I'm upset that it's at 2 because I work that day, and I'm gonna miss all of the Huberdeau Uyghur celebration stuff that Florida. I'm a sucker for that. I love the nostalgia and the thank yous and the appreciation of the service the player gave you.
Are they gonna be doing a video package for the conditional 24, 25, 26 pick that may or may not be going to Calgary at some point? And then we'll go straight to Montreal.
No, I think they'll just probably do Uyghur, and Porchwint will probably get shafted.
It'll just be an empty
him and his
chair.
Him and his 2 career games in a Panthers jersey will probably get shafted. But Uyghur will, but more specifically, I'm very interested. When was the last time Florida ever had a player of Huberdeau's relevance come back? Never, because he's their franchise leading scorer. Never. So I'm very interested to see what Florida does for him, because they've never.
I'll say this. Knowing a lot of people work in the Panthers organization, they're going to do something nice. They'll do. Mm-hmm. I think it'll be and classy the way the Panthers tend to do these things.
But that's kind of my, like, if you want to get to watch the game early, tune in, sit down a little earlier. They're more than likely almost 99.9% chance will be something pregame for them.
No, it'll be
first stoppage or whatever.
TV timeout
to play.
Yeah, the whatever happens will be TV timeout like it always is.
Oh, sometimes if they're relevant,
unless they're retiring the jersey, it'll be TV timeout. The league has rules about this now.
Oh, there you go. That's why, because because of all the old Montreal ceremonies.
Yeah, but don't go
for 35 minutes.
You don't mess with the broadcast windows, especially on a Saturday. The league gets cranky about that. So that'll do it for us. Flames Nation Radio is brought to you by DoorDash and Eau Claire Distillery, the makers of Rupert's Whiskey, the official whiskey of the Calgary Flames. Once again, make sure you're following us on social media. Make sure you're subscribed to the Nation Network YouTube channel. Make sure you've bookmarked the Flames Nation playlist on our YouTube channel to get all the sweet Flames Nation content. Flames Nation Live, Flames Nation Radio, Shot Down in Flames, and most importantly right now, Barn Burner. They've had a really good week on Barn Burner. It's usually they have good weeks.
Quality guests.
They had friggin' Bo Levi Mitchell, someone who maybe, I don't know if he's on the all-time Mount Rushmore for Calgary sports icons. He's definitely in the conversation, especially the last 15 years. He's synonymous with Calgary. It's kind of sad to see him leave, but he's, a class act, one of the, best talkers, and he's done a lot in the community. So make sure you seek out the Bo Levi conversation on the Tuesday edition of Barn Burner. And Wednesday, we got Craig Conroy, and they didn't even have to plan out a show. They said, we'll have Craig in, say hi, Craig, and then let's let him talk. Another good show. So make sure you're checking out all that stuff on our YouTube channels, and make sure you're following the Flames Nation feeds for all that content. We'll just throw it at you as it comes available, and we have content being added every single day. So for Shane, I'm Ryan. Thank you very much for listening, watching, clicking, shouting, throwing things at us on the street. Please stop doing that because my arm hurts now. But yeah, we appreciate it. We really appreciate all your time, love, and attention. And we'll see you guys in a week for yet another edition of Flames Nation Radio.